Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. It's all go this week as we've got even more news about Warhammer The Old World, and which is actually a little bit of a weird coincidence because just yesterday I was asked, do I know what the next army for Warhammer The Old World will be? And the person commenting said, I really hope it's Empire. My response was, I've no idea. But now, however, we know. And the answer is Warriors of Chaos. So let's have a look at what we're going to get. First of all, let's have a look at the Arcane Journal. We know there's going to be two special characters. One of them will be Galrock the Great Drake. There's going to be 7 new unit profiles and 2 armies of infamy. Now, quite a while ago, I did a video on a reference in one of the Warhammer community articles which talked about the Barbarian Javelineer, and I suggested it was probably going to be a new unit. I think the general consensus was it's a new name for Marauder Horsemen because they could already be armed with javelins. They were still called Marauder Horsemen, so I am definitely doubling down at this point to say I think the Barbarian Javelineer is going to be one of the new units. I think it's going to be a skirmish unit. It may be tied to one of the new armies of infamy, the Wolves of the Sea, which to me sounds like it's very much going to be emphasizing the role of Chaos Marauders. The other army of infamy, the Heralds of Darkness, we're told is going to be a mounted force. So I'm expecting to see lots of knights, chariots, marauder horse, dogs, stuff like that. And actually I think could make quite an interesting, almost glass cannonies to a certain extent, Warrior of Chaos army that could be quite a bit of fun to use on the tabletop. So I'm going to watch this space with distinct interest. As to what the second special character is, who knows? There being a Wolves of the Sea army of infamy that might suggest going into Wulfric, something like that. But of course we do know that the big bad of the Great Chaos Incursion would be building up around the time Warhammer The Old World is set. So therefore could be Avasar Kull getting a mention. Who knows at this point? Purely speculation from my part. Next up, let's talk about the Warriors of Chaos Battalion box. It's got 44 models in it, 32 of which are Chaos Warriors. 10 of them are Chaos Knights and 2 Chariots of Chaos, which could be built as normal chariots or Gorebeast chariots. Now, it does kind of feel to me that a Chaos Warrior army should actually have Warriors of Chaos in it. It's kind of in the name. But I think as the meta's developed, we are moving away from those big blocks of Chaos Warriors. And if you are going to include them, you're not going to have more than one unit. So say 15 to 20. So maybe with some conversion work, you might be able to turn the Warriors into Forsaken or Chosen or something a little bit more interesting. But we are very much talking here about monopose models. They're not particularly, they're probably the least exciting actually of Chaos Warrior forces we've really ever seen when it comes to Warhammer Fantasy. So I think it would take quite a skilled modeler really to be able to get much value out of that many warriors. 10 Chaos Knights, slightly underwhelming, Chosen decent, but perhaps not as powerful as you'd like. Chariots, yeah, pretty decent. Overall thoughts on the battalion then. I think my thoughts on this are very much in the same vein as actually my thoughts on the Dwarf Battalion, on the Orc and Goblin Battalion box set. Actually, it doesn't seem to offer great value. Not necessarily because of the price per model, but because you're going to be buying a lot of models which I think you will struggle to use. Now, I could be wrong on this, and maybe people, once we've seen the Arcane Journal, will find interesting ways of using all of these figures. But I'm looking at this and thinking if I want to collect Warriors of Chaos, this probably isn't high on my list of models that I want to get, which again I think is a little bit disappointing. As with all releases, we're seeing an accessory kit, so we're seeing a box of cards with Gifts of Chaos, with spells, and a pack of 20 dice. And again, I'm going to say exactly the same thing as I did with the Dwarf range and almost certainly with the Orc range, in that, yeah, the cards might be a little bit useful, but ultimately I think for the price of them, it's not worth it. And the dice are, I think, really overpriced. You can, all right, if you want the special design, go for it. If you can afford it and you really want it, go for it. It's your hobby, do your thing. But I think for the ordinary gamer, it's just an unnecessary expense. That being said, let's turn our attention to the returning plastics. And what have we got? We've got a Chaos Lord on a Manticore. Now, I know that the excitement's all really been about dragons, but I think Manticores definitely have the potential to have a good place in people's lists. Slightly pared down dragon, effectively a little bit cheaper, allowing you to have a bit more flexibility with your characters. So I think that's a good release, and for such a big model to be in plastic, I think that's quite helpful because it will be fairly light and also reasonably sturdy, I would have thought. We're also seeing a champion of Chaos and Chaos Sorcerer, the Chaos Chimera, Dragon Ogres. Now, Dragon Ogres, I think that's something people are definitely going to be wanting to pick up. It does seem to be a mainstay of a lot of Chaos Warrior forces, either as single units or actually as individual drops to help you out deploy your opponent. And then, of course, there's the Chaos Warriors, which we've already discussed. Returning metals, we've got a various spread of characters. They're classic models. Some of them, I think, particularly the Lord on Foot, is a really nice model. I've got one of those myself, which I was half in the process of rebasing for 40k. May try and rebase back into Warhammer if I go down the Warriors of Chaos route. We're seeing Metal Chaos Ogres, the Chaos Ogre Command, and Chaos Trolls, and then the Chosen and Chosen Command. We're also told there's going to be weapon upgrade kits for Chaos Warriors, allowing them to wield halberds and great weapons. Now, personally, I would have liked to have seen the Chaos Warrior kit come with all of the options in the box, rather than having to get separate upgrades. So that sounds like it's going to be disappointing. And as for the Chaos Ogres, these are really old models. I'm not sure they've necessarily stood the test of time. They look all right. I think personally, if I was going to bring ogres into my Chaos Force, I'd be looking to use ogre bulls and do some conversion work on those instead. And we've got the returning resins. So here we have the Hell Cannon, and those of you who have followed the Tale of Many Gamers series I did will notice that, or remember, I should say, that Tim, great lover of the Hell Cannon, it barely survived a single game because it kept on blowing itself up. So not a great toy for him, and I think it's not a toy that we've seen an awful lot of use out of in competitive Chaos list. But you know, it's a fun thing and something you might want to consider on that basis. We're also seeing in resin a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, the Skin Wolves, which look a little bit, well, rat ogre really, a Warpfire Dragon and a gigantic spawn of Chaos. So while these are billed as returning and remastered kits, I think we're looking at what is effectively going to be reasonably new unit types and not something that's been in the mainstream of Warhammer Fantasy. We're also going to see on Made to Order Chaos Sorcerer Lord on Steed, Demon Prince, and the classic Chaos Spawn. The article does also go a bit further to explain that whilst that's all Wave 1, it indicates what will be coming in Wave 2. And this is where the Marauders start to roll out. So Chaos Marauders on foot, Marauder Horsemen, Chaos Knights, the Chariots and Warhounds will all be in Round 2. Hopefully Round 2 follows on pretty quickly from Round 1, because I think there's a lot of things that you'll be wanting for a Warrior of Chaos army in that second set. So the Marauder Horsemen, the Marauder Warhounds, useful for hunting down enemy chaff, enemy artillery, stuff like that, or just blocking things off if you've got a load of Impetuous / Frenzy in your army. The article finishes off by saying that Warriors of Chaos will be available for pre-order soon. Now, soon does seem to have a bit of a flexible meaning when it comes to Games Workshop, as we know from how long we ended up waiting for the Dwarves. And given the Dwarves have only just come about, I wouldn't expect to see these models hitting the shelves anytime soon. At least in the way I would say soon. So are they going to be going up for pre-order in the next couple of weeks? I highly doubt it. Personally, I'd be expecting this to be released in the next quarter, so somewhere around September, October time. But watch this space, as more will doubtlessly be revealed by the Warhammer team in good time. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening to my comments on this topic and this latest bit of news. If you've enjoyed the video, do consider dropping a like. Subscribe is always helpful. Once again, thank you very much for listening. I am Return to the Old World. Have a great day.